Welcome back to the Old Soul Millennial channel. In today's video, I'd like to provide a 3-year review of my 2020 F250 6.7 liter Powerstroke. This is the 4x4 model, crew cab, short box, XL, but it has the STX appearance package. And if you're curious what trim level I think you should get if you're thinking about buying a new or used truck, get the XL, but get the STX appearance package. It gives you those chrome accents, cruise control. It's just a really nice little upgrade, and I feel like you're getting the best bang for your buck. So first we're going to start off with the good, and then we'll move on to the bad, and then I'll just share some other thoughts as well. So let's start off with the good. This has been a reliable truck. I will say that. It's done everything I've asked it to do. No issues starting. It's just a solid truck. So I mean, if you're looking something that you can take to work every day and beat the balls off, I mean, this is a solid truck, and I'd highly recommend it in that aspect. But that's not to say it doesn't have a few issues. We're going to get to those. Next, I'd like to move on to cold starts. This is the diesel, and a lot of people get concerned that, you know, maybe I'll have some cold start issues. I've started this truck down to about 0 degrees Fahrenheit, probably even a little bit colder with the wind chill, without having it plugged in, and I've had no issues starting it. It starts right up. I do try to plug it in if I know I'm going to leave it outside and the temperatures get below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, because that's what the owner's manual recommends. But also to that point, if you want to ensure that you're not going to have any cold start issues, you got to make sure your batteries are good. Still on the original batteries here 3 years later. But you also got to make sure that you drain your water separator probably once a month in the wintertime. Just make sure there's no water in there. Make sure you're getting a high quality fuel source, but no issues with cold starts. More good. This is a freaking powerful truck. This truck really has the torque to do what you need it to do. Like, we have this big hill in my area, and whenever I'm towing my dump trailer, it just has the power to fly up that hill. I mean, it totally outperforms a gas-powered truck in that aspect. I take my wife's Honda CR-V up that hill, and like, you know, it's getting up to 4,000 or 5,000 RPMs to get up this hill and go 45 miles an hour. I mean, this thing pegged at 1,000 RPM with the dump trailer half loaded, and it's just kind of chugging up the hill, no problem. So in terms of torque and power, 6.7, phenomenal. 10-speed transmission, I really haven't had any issues with it. It does an excellent job at finding the right power band. And also to that point, something I really like about this truck that I didn't include on the list, which I'm going to tell you now, is the exhaust brake. And that's something that you just don't get on the gas trucks. When you go into tow haul mode in the gas truck, yes, they downshift and they use the engine compression to help slow the truck down. But these diesels, I mean, they don't have spark plugs. They combust based on the engine's compression. And that really gives you such an advantage when it comes to slowing down the truck. So what I'm getting at, the exhaust braking capabilities of this truck are absolutely phenomenal when you're towing. And you could have 10,000 pounds behind you, set the exhaust brake on, go down a 6 or 7% grade. You know, once you tap the brake a few times and the truck finds its right braking ratio between engine braking and RPM, you really don't even have to touch the brakes. So just phenomenal in that aspect. Moving on, this truck is just comfortable. Plenty of room, really comfortable on long rides. My wife has the CR-V, and when we're trying to decide what vehicle we want to use for the day to run our errands or whatever, oftentimes we pick this truck because it's just comfortable, it's quiet, and it's safer. I mean, you're higher up off the ground, heavier vehicle. The roads are getting dangerous these days. Between people being on their cell phones and all these states legalizing, people don't understand that when you smoke, I mean, you're still under the influence. It's really just as bad as drinking alcohol. I'm sure somebody will disagree with me, but you're under the influence and you're making the roads dangerous for everybody else. In fact, I don't know if you guys have heard, but the government has come out with this new regulation, and I forget when they're going to implement it, but basically in newer cars, they're going to start monitoring the driver. They're going to look for signs of inebriation and intoxication, and I think the vehicle won't start unless it detects that you are good to go. Something along those lines. I know they snuck it in one of these big bipartisan bills that had like 1,000 pages, so I don't know how I feel about that. I don't want to be watched, but at the same time I want to ensure that my wife and my family are going to be protected when they go out on the road. So for other people, yes, I think it's a great thing. For me, I don't want it. Moving on to the final good thing I have on my note, I've had no issues with the exhaust system. You know, when people hear modern diesel, they think, oh, those trucks are junk because of the regen, the exhaust system. Look, it's just something we have to deal with now, and if the parts do fail, yes, they're expensive, but honestly, most of you guys out there with a set of tools probably can do the repairs on these trucks. A lot of people say you can't work on these modern cars. Well, in a lot of ways, they're actually easier to work on than some of the old cars, pre-OBD2, because you plug in your scanner, you pick up the codes as to what the computer is detecting is wrong, and then from there you can kind of, well, you get pointed in the right direction as to what the issue is. And I mean, somebody with half a brain and a phone and Google, I mean, you can start looking up your symptoms, and internet will probably tell you what's wrong with your truck. You go out, buy the part, put it on yourself, probably cost a quarter or a third of the cost of what it would be if you had it done at the dealer. Probably even cheaper than that. So, getting off topic here. All right, so let's talk about the bad. Let's talk about some issues I've had. So first, we'll start with the drive shaft slip yoke seal. It had failed in my truck, started leaking, and I ended up replacing it myself. Quick story behind that. I went under the truck just to grease everything up, change the oil, do whatever, and I noticed that there were a few rusty areas, such as the slip yoke, so I decided to paint it with Rust-Oleum. Go figure, you know, a few months later it starts leaking, take it into the dealership because I figure, oh, it'll be covered under warranty. Well, they text me and they say, hey, you know anything about this black stuff on the slip yoke? I said, oh yeah, it was a little rusty. I ended up painting it. They said, oh, that's what caused the seal to fail. We're not going to cover it. So, lesson learned, talking to the dealership for warranty issues is like talking to the cop. Don't self-incriminate yourself. Play dumb. Get a lawyer. But anyway, they wanted like $600. I ended up replacing it myself. The seal was like $50. Got it right from the parts department. So, yeah. What are you going to do? Probably mostly my fault, but it has been a popular video, that repair video I did, because apparently a lot of other people have had that issue as well. So, something to keep an eye on. Not a big deal. Not too bad to replace. About 2 hours. So, next issue. This hasn't been present as much lately, but for like the first 25,000 miles, I definitely noticed this, and maybe it got fixed with the software. When I start the truck and I go down my street, go to the end of my street, and I go down a hill, when I make that turn and I start going down that hill when the engine's somewhat cold, I've noticed that the engine starts to rev up a little high. Like when I take my foot off the accelerator, it'll stay kind of pegged at like 12,000 RPM. Like I would expect as soon as you take your foot off the accelerator, it should, you know, go back down to a bit of an idle. So that's been a strange occurrence for me. I'm not sure if any other people have had that issue out there as well. And another thing I dislike, when the engine is cold, you know, going down that same hill, if I'm hauling a trailer and I put the truck in tow haul mode, the engine, detecting that it's going downhill, revs extremely high when it's pretty cold. I mean, it gets upwards of 3,000 RPM, and I would think the computer would tell the truck, hey, we're not really warm enough yet to start downshifting and get the RPMs that high this soon. So that is something I dislike, and what I've done to kind of eliminate that issue is when I'm towing my trailer and I'm going down my first hill and I'm just getting the engine up to temperature, I will leave it out of tow haul mode, and I'll just kind of have it in normal driving mode and just kind of take it easy for the first while. And yes, I do allow my truck to warm up. I allow it to idle for probably 5 minutes before I do any kind of heavy towing. So yes, I do try and warm up the truck, but going down the first hill outside my block, some weird RPM issues. But after that, I mean, things mellow out. I don't know what's going on there, but just something I've noticed. So moving on with the last thing I have on my list in terms of the bad, it's maintenance costs. So before I had this truck, I had a Chevy 1500 5.3 gas job truck. Oil changes and maintenance, a lot cheaper. This thing, 13 quarts of oil. And I think on the newer Super Duties, they take 15 quarts of oil. And diesel oil, you get gypped a little bit. You go buy a jug of oil for a gas car, it's a 5-quart jug. You go out and buy diesel oil, it's only a gallon, 4 quarts. Corporate greed, maybe. Fuel filters, I change my fuel filters every second oil change, so about 15,000 miles. I think Ford recommends 30,000 miles, but I think it's safer to go with half that. Fuel filters only go with OEM. I get them from Amazon. Ford Motor Company part, costs about $75. So the maintenance is higher on this truck. Fuel additives, I recommend you add a fuel additive every time you fill up your tank for this reason. One known issue with these trucks, they've gotten a little bit better, but it's still an issue, is the CP4 pump. That's the high pressure fuel pump. It's kind of the heart of this truck. And they've been known to implode. And as soon as they implode, you get those metallic shavings throughout your fuel system. And then people have said that it costs upwards of $10,000 to replace the entire fuel system. You got to drop the tank, drain the tank, wash it out, or replace the tank. Fuel lines going back and forth to the tank, injectors, the pump. So I mean, to get it done at a dealer, I could totally see why it'd be $10,000. I mean, if you buy the parts yourself, I don't know, how much would it be? More like $3,000? But anyway, those CP4 pumps are designed across the pond, and across the pond they have more sulfur in their diesel, which adds more lubricity, to my understanding. Here in the States, we have low sulfur diesel, so there's not much lubricity in the fuel, and I believe that's one of the reasons why the CP4s fail, but also lack of maintenance. I mean, if you're not changing out your fuel filters, you're not draining that water separator, I mean, there's a much higher chance that you're going to have issues. S&S Diesel came out with the DCR pump. I would like to add that to this truck when my warranty runs out. I think that's when it makes sense to do it, but it's $2,000 for the part. I'll probably do it myself, but that's just something to keep an eye on. So stay on top of maintenance. When you get out of that warranty period, definitely think about changing your CP4 to that DCR pump. Aside from that, just some other notes. My dad has a Super Duty too. He has a 22. He has a nicer trim level truck. He has a King Ranch. Now, his truck has some really nice features. I mean, it has the massaging seats, the drop down steps, power mirrors. But with that luxury, unfortunately, a lot of these Super Duties have electrical issues. I mean, he uses his truck pretty heavily. He puts a plow on it. He does a lot of work for a lot of different properties. And he has nothing but small electrical issues here and there with the truck. Yes, it's still a very reliable truck. However, he's had his power mirror replaced, I believe, twice now. And additionally, the passenger running board step, it has a serious bounce back issue. I've looked into it a little bit. I haven't been able to quite figure it out yet. But what I've noticed with these Super Duties, you go to a higher trim level, I mean, it's much more likely that you're going to have some nonsensical electrical issue. And if you're a Super Duty guy, somebody I recommend you subscribe to is Power Tech Talk with A-Rod. PTT with A-Rod, I think is his channel name. I watch his videos all the time. Extremely knowledgeable guy. He knows all the ins and outs about these trucks, makes some phenomenal repair videos. But he's pointed out, if you go onto the underside of these trucks, I mean, a lot of these electrical plugs are exposed. And some of these plugs all the way in the back of the truck are critical to the operation of the truck. So you just have to keep an eye on the underside of the truck. I mean, if you do any kind of plowing, wash your truck, really care about the underside of your truck. Maybe think about unplugging all those electrical connections, add some dielectric grease. Of course, unplug the battery and do it properly, but you just got to watch out for these small electrical issues. That's another reason why I recommend going with a more basic XL truck and get the STX Appearance Package. Do your own upgrades. Add your Morimoto headlights, add the running board steps, add your aftermarket heated seats like I've done. I'll leave links to those videos in the description down below. But keep it simple. Save the money, put it towards something more important. I don't know what else to say. Thank you guys for watching. I'd like to hear your thoughts and comments in the comment section down below. As always, I will catch you on the next one.